théâtre and appear halfway through and interrupt me. Okay, so I'm Michael Gubbins. You may have seen me at previous sessions. So I'm going to give you a kind of overview of my bits of the workshops yesterday. I think just as an intro to the whole thing, a background, it's kind of weird to be back, isn't it? It's a conference is a really strange thing, and I think this morning all the frustrations and wonders of a big conference have all kind of come to the fore. And some people have said to me this morning, why aren't we doing things which are really for workshops? And I think it's one of the things, there's no point in complaining at a dog for not being a cat. And I think it's worth recalling, actually, and just reminding everyone of just how much Europa Cinemas has changed and evolved. Is the sessions and workshops that I did a part of were the end of a process and the beginning of a process. They were the end in terms of collaborate to innovate and the charters on diversity and environmental change. They were began with exhibitors. Often young exhibitors who hadn't necessarily been involved in doing big speeches from conferences, but we sat down on Zoom. They worked out the guidelines. They worked out what was relevant to them in pushing things forward. They created something by getting together on Zoom. And those ideas were fleshed out into applications and trying to work out how to turn concepts into activities, workshopping them. And this Europa Cinemas has fantastic workshops that I think expand on the things that we've just seen. To me, the wonder of this conference is still all of these different perspectives that are coming in that we heard this morning and we've been hearing in Art House Tales. So trying to bring those together as a conference, I think what it's allowed us to do, I think, is to get a shared sense of direction. It brings the family together, the crazy uncles too, but it brings the whole family together, I think, to be looking at ideas from the same perspectives. It gives us a sense of direction that isn't always there. And Europa Cinemas, I suspect for some of you too, provided a fantastic visual metaphor for us. So in the Novotel Tour Eiffel, from my room, I can see the whole vista of Paris apart from the Tour Eiffel, which has got a huge building in front of it. So sometimes how to navigate these things when they're right in front of you can be something important. I have a note here. Okay, so I'm not sure Frank's going to be able to do his presentation from the train, but I'll try to give you well, I can still give you the overview of the bits, because I think that the two bits we're doing are important. So a sense of direction, and that sense of direction, I think, that came through the workshops was also that idea of optimism and pessimism. This theme has kept coming through every time we've been talking. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? You're already an optimist. You chose, you crazy people, to put your life into art house film. I mean, that already means that you are optimists, maybe to a point of naivety, but you chose. You could have been making money. You could have owned this hotel. You could have been on the suite at the top, but you chose to put your energy and love and passion and belief into art house cinema. But I think what we've also done is, we are now in what for some of you, I've been hearing from, and certainly my friends whose cinemas have closed over the last few months, this is an existential fight. And the thing with a fight is you're an optimist if you believe you can win it. And if you stay in it and you don't surrender, you're an optimist. So when people say, are you optimistic or pessimistic, it's not a difficult thing to understand. You either things are going to work and you're going to fight for every single bit of it, or you're going to allow this thing to fail and this thing to fall. And the fact you're all here tells me that you are optimists, whether you accept the label or not. So the sessions that I did, and perhaps the summary of the whole conference, is what are we fighting for? What are we fighting with? And how are we going to get people on our side in that fight? And that's not just fellow cinephiles and people like us. When people were talking yesterday, when we were talking about the art form of cinema, when people are talking to me about, oh yeah, we know all this, you know, we know that cinema is this great art form, and you've got to, that's not good enough that you know it. It's not good enough that the people who also love it know it. That's something that you have to go out. You're going to have to go out and sell, and you've got to sell to a new generation. And what's boring and factual and true about it is when that next lot have come through, you're going to have to do it again and again and again and again, because if you're going to be in this fight, you've got to understand exactly what it is that you're selling, exactly what it is that you're trying to get across. This art form is not just going to somehow miraculously get into the hands of a new generation that's going to take it forward. You are the ones that are going to have to make this come true. And that is the theme that I think in both of the two sessions. So the first session was about collaborate to innovate. But it wasn't really just about collaborate to innovate. It was about the whole concept of what collaborate to innovate means. Europa Cinemas, supported by media, has created something which is amazing. And it was built by cinemas. And what we were hearing in each session was how they have made those collaborate to innovate sessions work. And the thing that makes them work, I think, was put very well by all the speakers, is you're dealing with a real-world problem. You begin with what is it we're trying to resolve. Innovation's not some abstract concept, and sometimes I think in funding bodies, there's this idea, innovation, oh, that's digital, that's new. Nonsense. Innovation is the way in which you deal with realities, specific realities and specific problems today, and you find mechanisms for making that work. So in the session, those specific real-world problems began with, if you look at the kind of Cineville approach that we've heard about here, that idea of a subscription scheme is fairly simple. How do we get people to discover diverse film? We talk about diversity, we talk about making more diversity in terms of films, but how do we get people to discover these films when there are so many other things to do and they go to cinemas so rarely? So those of you who I've spoken to have said, oh, I don't know if it'll work in our area. Maybe you're right. But you know what? The subscription idea of getting people, incentivizing them to go and try out things that they don't know they want, seems to me at least some kind of idea, and it gets round the idea, as was being pointed out yesterday, that dropping prices can also be about devaluing what it is you do. So dropping prices in terms of just what film is one thing, but creating a subscription to incentivize discovery, I think, is at the heart of that kind of Cineville idea. What also came out of that project is that you can share these things. So the point of Collaborate to Innovate is that you work out these problems, you try out solutions, and you accept, as every innovator does, that you're going to fail somewhere along the way. Things that you thought, oh, that's going to work, don't. And the things that you hadn't even thought about are the ones that actually drive forward the whole project. And the great thing with Collaborate to Innovate is those pioneers that are doing these projects are handing it over to you to learn from their mistakes and move on and get better. So I think those of you in the room who are sitting thinking, should I do a Collaborate to Innovate project? Do it. I mean, there is absolutely no excuse. There is money to do these things, and you have now got a whole cohort of people who've done the experimentation for you and have moved you on to a point where think of what the problem is that you're trying to resolve. Think about elements of that are really worth innovating on and make those happen. So I'm going to keep saying this, that came out throughout this whole workshop is, For God's sake, you've got a huge opportunity. Do not let that pass. Work out those projects and start talking to other people in this room and make it happen. So that's problem one. The second one, I think, came out. The problem, I think, was a technical one more, which is we talk about events. And everything has to be an event, and it's great if you can get people in to come and talk, the directors and so on. But there's a big technical problem. We can't get to our future one art house cinema at a time. It can't happen that way. We're constantly reinventing with things that don't integrate with the same technology down the road. So the project that was being offered by Peen in this case was methods for actually integrating the technologies so that actually you could share those events on screens. You could allow that interaction to happen in lots of different places and work across international borders. It seems to me really obvious, but these trends aren't necessarily, as art cinemas, these aren't necessarily the core of your activities day to day. These are things that these may happen in innovation elsewhere. But the first step, for those of you, and probably not many, but those of you who, like me, have worked with those kind of big business entrepreneurs and the dot-com people of yesteryear, there's a word, interoperability, and it's critical, and it means that this works with this. Interoperability is at the heart of this, and I think that was what Peen's project was all about. So the third problem was that was addressed is really that problem of how do we get young people to interact with film, to come to cinemas, to see cinemas as something belonging to them. And the project starts with what I still think is the lesson that all of us need to learn all the time, which is the best way to do things with younger audiences is to listen to them about what it is that they want and what it is that they do, and to work out their culture rather than us deciding that this is what they should be doing. We will allow them into our cinemas, and we'll tell them, we'll work out a way in our heads to do this. And in this case, there's a fantastically simple thing. The young audience, like most young people, are more internationalist than we ever were, those of us of my age growing up, because the world to them isn't their narrow town. This is one of the nations. This is one of the great things about Europeanism, is that those borders don't exist in their heads necessarily. They tend to be internationalist. So the idea of this, of the project was, well, shouldn't we treat our international cinema and our relationships between cultural film from all over the world, shouldn't we just treat it more like interrailing and less like trying to give them something, saying this is good for you, this is something from another country that you should sit down and appreciate. The appreciation and understanding of the international world is something that's already there, and it's an innate. So that idea of bringing together a project which takes the interrail idea and brings that into the thinking of a project, I think, is quite exciting. Then we moved on to a project which was about sound. All the way through, I was just thinking, it's sound and vision. I'm glad I've put that into your heads as well now. I've just had this tune going round and round my head for the last 2 days. But sound and vision is what, it's different facets that need to be exploited. Cinema, as we've been hearing over the last 2 days, is not about the film on the screen. It's not about story. It's not about even the big screen. It's about all those facets that make up cinema culture. And the experience in this case that's being exploited is as much about sound as it is about vision. The way we absorb, and the ideas, the soundtracks that are in our head. You may think of whole films and remember nothing about the film, but remember the soundtrack and how that interacted with a particular vision. So And of course, sound has made a huge comeback. So the podcast idea, I mean, I talk to my kids. It's very useful, by the way, if you can do this, to get to 20-plus-year-old kids. Because I've got to them at home and they know I'm an idiot, and they like to tell me every day about these things, but you also learn about their culture. So my daughter she suddenly got into radio. How can radio be the big thing? But radio is the big thing, because sound and vision don't belong to any era. They are something which can be exploited and worked on. So that notion of a project which shares and builds on the idea of sound products, of podcasts, of soundtracks, of doing those things, I think was a really valuable one. And finally, again, from an education project, how do you, in this case, Yeva's project, travel with film education? Again, there's the travel idea, but education and relationships and partnerships with schools, they take careful building. They take very careful building. But if you can build those partnerships and pick up on things that really work in education and really open up those kind of school-age minds to the opportunities that go there, there are opportunities there. And Yeva did a really fantastic. She was very generous. She didn't mention her project until I asked her at the end, but she gave this fantastic and wonderful, this from Latvia, wonderful overview, which was basically what I call design thinking. That was, she'd done it she hadn't used those terms. But if you look at the way innovations work, they tend to work through the same process. And she was explaining how it's about measurement. It's about thinking through ideas with your potential audiences, your potential customers. Think about how they are going to interact with this. Set yourself clear objectives that are achievable, and evaluate and reevaluate. It is worth, if you're doing an innovation project, learning how innovation works and how project management works, and I thought she did that brilliantly well. So again, I just think this scheme is something that it's been a privilege to have. It's something which you have got a whole load of people. There's someone from Latvia there. We've got people from all over working across borders, working inside international projects, and this stuff works. And Fatima has given me something. So, okay, there's a whole, I think what you're showing me is, go on to Europa Cinema's website, and this whole thing is in here. It will explain everything. It will explain how to build a project. It will explain and give you the case studies. It will explain what can be paid for and what can't be paid for. It will explain what the rules are. This can be done, and it should be done, and what we heard from our panel was a whole load of people who have done it. So listen to them and do something yourself as soon as you go out of this room. Is that okay? Okay, so the next panel, it evolved in a similar kind of way, which it began with a commitment. It began with an idea that actually we need to make to clear statements of principle and ideas around the environmental sustainability on one side, and in gender balance and diversity and inclusion on the other. What came out of those sessions was that a feeling from cinemas that there needed to be clarity in that statement. But I think what we heard over and over again from people in the room is, we don't want to do, this isn't about some virtue signaling words. We're not interested in words, we want action. But those words can drive action. If you've got something that's clear in your head, then you can move forward. Gender balance is something that is a constant. We simply have to do it. You can see the benefits in the room. You can see these things happening all the time. But this is a battle which hasn't been won. This is a battle where we have made progress. But progress, I think, there's still a lot of progress still to come. And one of the great things about bringing together groups of exhibitors to come and talk about these things is, you know, you learn lessons, but the lesson that was most clear in this is in terms of green and in terms of diversity. It's not a nice thing to have on the edge. It's a necessity. It's a necessity in terms of environmental ideas, perhaps even more so now with the energy costs and the energy issues we've got. We have to move towards a more sustainable approach to things. We simply have to. And the expectations that kept coming out of our audiences are that you are going to you're going to be a place of best practice, and perhaps more so than ever in a social space. You do have responsibilities, but those responsibilities are not abstract for your audience. They expect you to have those things. They expect you to do these things. There is no opt-out option for what to me are the clearest trends in the world. And as my daughter said before we came here, good luck trying to get young women into your cinemas if you're not offering an understanding of gender. If you haven't got gender balance, you're not going to have us. It's simply the world that we live in. There's nothing woke about this. We have to reflect the community that we live in. And if you haven't done even the core basics of reflecting the fact that that these things need to be something which where all genders and all people feel they are welcomed, then there isn't a future to fight for. So I think that came across very strongly. What we did in this session, though, was what I think was most important, which is big ideas, maybe. Not that big ideas, really. It's their day-to-day ideas, and they should be. And if they're not, then you've got some work to do. Go and read the charters. They will be online in europacinemas.com, which always my favourite website. It should be .what? .org. I always go to the .com. You can go to the .org. I've got it on speed dial. It's there all the time. In fact, I don't really look at any other websites. I get most of my news and all of my sport from europacinemas.org. Don't forget the org, please. So what we got from the sessions was actually a very practical approach. Matthias Damm from Germany. Already one of my heroes who's built from Nuremberg, who's built this, he's done a lot of work on environmental sustainability within it, but just this incredibly practically minded approach to this, which is always work on set yourself a goal, set yourself objectives, measure what it is you're doing right now. So first step in diversity and in the green thing is measure exactly what you're doing at this moment so that you can see progress. But it begins with knowing where you are. You never feel like you're making progress or you're going anywhere until you've properly evaluated this moment. And then there are objectives which are what he was calling low-hanging fruit. But to me, in some ways, the first thing you can do is work out what to stop doing. What is it I'm doing right now that I shouldn't do? That seems like a pretty good first step that can be easily evaluated on the things that you know are, they are your weak spots in terms of inclusivity or environmental sides. Then you look at what that progress that takes you along a road and along a path where you set yourself goal after goal after goal. The wonder of that approach, of course, is that all of you here can share this. This is what Europa Cinemas does. That's where the workshops are so valuable and where the day-to-day interaction between you, the mini networks, all of the different facets, is you can learn from each other. So you set yourself goals that are relevant to you. They're not goals that are grand goals, and there is no excuse for saying, oh, it's fine in Germany. They have baths in euros. Every morning they wake up and get in their beer. We could go on about Germany. I feel like after the football, my football joke, I should probably leave off. But you know the point. That is not it. There are goals for you. There are goals for every single one of you, but it begins with you measuring, as Matthias was saying over and over again, and then you work out steps, and you work out achievable steps. Anne Falcon, she came on and this is a green build. This is something that starts from scratch. It was a wonderful project. It's a cinema that is a green cinema. And she did offer, and I think we all want to take this up, to get a big bus to go to see her dry toilet, which it's difficult when people are showing you diagrams of dry toilets not to just remember the dry toilet. But there was lots of other things apart from that that I think were, it felt like there were clues from people who were doing things that are very difficult for you to do when you're in an old building, that I think you can make, I still think you can make quite a big difference by learning some of those things that work in new builds that maybe you can retrofit, which brings me on to the retrofit session where we heard from Olivier Douay, and we were talking about, we were just pushing his company, but the idea of retrofitting and making the most out of your projectors, making sure that you had, it wasn't something that had to be replaced all of the time. You could use new technologies to make it happen. The warning that came from him was still, I think, some of the things that are possible are probably going to upset some of the biggest and most influential people in this business, which are the big manufacturers of projectors. But I think, again, I think what he was pushing towards was, yeah, that you can do some amazing things here by simply getting past that. And we need perhaps to think together, and maybe this is something for Europa cinemas, that how easy is it to ensure that equipment can be accessed and kept for longer periods, because that environmental sustainability that will become a bigger issue in the coming years. There's a lot of those of you who do listen to podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts these days talking about the scarcity of materials, the metals and so on within your within projectors and within all electronics. So there's something quite big at that point. And then two more. We have Maddie, who you've heard from a lot, but she had a great, again, she was talking about the kind of progress that's kind of slow. The word slow was coming through. It's not slow as in not doing anything. It's slow as in, again, making sure that you have clarity of where you're going, clarity of objectives, achievable goals, and you do it bit by bit by bit. But I think what she showed in Bristol was just how far you can go on this process. Once you've set yourself on the path, you're going to find yourself achieving goal after goal after goal much more quickly, because the mentality, the psychology of your business can change. And again, she made a really big point about this is something that this isn't top down, get the team involved, get everyone involved. And then finally, we had Jeremy, who was talking about another project called Passerelle, but this is another Collaborate to Innovate project. But I thought it's a really, he made a passionate case and a really essential case. The bit we too often forget in diversity, diversity discussion is social class. Our cinemas are quite often next to places that do not use our cinemas. The biggest danger that I think we have, and I think perhaps the biggest divide when we talk about fragmentation, is that class divide. And it's growing. There's a feeling that there's the educated over here and there's the uneducated over here. And if you look at everything from Brexit to Donald Trump and so on, cinema as an art form and a cultural art form, if it doesn't have meaning that is able to cross that class divide, then what's it for? If we're just going to, we might as well just be sitting in the boutique cinemas, eating, drinking our Albarino and watching an art house film and not thinking about the people who are down the road who actually live in the communities we live in. That's the jazz scenario, the danger where you take a people's art form and eventually you realize you're only watching it in a room full of old white people. And that can't be, that isn't what cinema is. Cinema cannot go down the jazz route. It has to be something which has power and mission. And as Passerelle is trying to do this, are we even communicating across those borders? He was talking about, the way that we write, the things that we write, the approaches we take, They need to cross those borders. If we have given up the idea that cinema is a people's art form, I'm not interested in it. I'm not sure that at that point it becomes just a business thing, and good luck with a niche boutique business. It cannot be just that, and I think the fight for that is one that's worth fighting for. Cinema can't be medicine that you're telling young people to take, or you're telling people who aren't like you to take. I know, because I'm from that background. It's life-changing. Cinema can change lives, and that, to me, at the end of all this, is what's worth fighting for. So that was the two sessions. You could applaud if you like, but it's kind of sad when you... No, it's sad when you have to do that. I just wanted to say two quick things. First of all, the team that did this, I mean, to come back to these conferences after this amount of time, the Europa Cinemas team are fantastic, and I think that the work that they've done, when you're on your way out, make sure that you give them a pat on the back, because every night I've been there and they've been there late. And one last thing, having looked back over this 30 years and the extraordinary achievement that CLAUDE-ERIC put into play, I want to leave you with an asset that, and she won't like me doing it, but when we talk about age and we talk about, we need to be handing over to a new generation, and of course we do. I think Fatima is just the most extraordinary asset you have. You do, and she will hate me saying this. And Fatima is just non-stop. There is no one under the age of 20 who has remotely that amount of energy. She's sometimes completely exhausting, but also completely brilliant. And I think when you look at the future we've got, the new generation of exhibitors coming through, the fresh voices that we're hearing, and that kind of leadership, I think there is a lot to look forward to. So thanks to everyone, and appreciate your time. Should I take a question? Is there any questions, or may I go and watch the football? Okay, thank you.
Quelques petites minutes, on va présenter.
In a few minutes, we were going to show you a surprise, some images, thanks to Mr. Boudou, who's here. We can begin. This lasts just 2 minutes.
Très joyeux anniversaire Europa Cinéma pour tes 30 ans. Je suis contente d'être là.
Joyeux anniversaire Europa Cinéma.
Sorionak, Europa Cinemas.
Hartelijk gefeliciteerd, Europa Cinemas.
Happy birthday Europa Cinéma.
Herzlichen Glückwunsch, Europa Cinemas.
V slovenščini vse najboljše, Europa Cinemas.
Bon anniversaire, Europa Cinéma.
Alles Gute zum Geburtstag, Europa Cinemas.
J'ai une trentaine d'années là, je suis dans l'année de mes 30 ans. Donc ça me parle vraiment ce stade-là.
I'm 32, so it's for me it feels like a really long time.
And I think it's really amazing to see this network growing and expanding and going with the time.
So I'm guessing that we should trust people that are, like organizations that are older, because they know better.
The organization is quite young, 30 is nothing, so this is a really good start.
Wow, I'm here for the 30th anniversary, on the stage, talking to the people, wow.
I think our future is around Europe and is around collaboration.
It's a beautiful project. It has the face of Europe that we imagine. We speak many languages, we share experiences.
The 30th anniversary of Europa Cinemas gives me hope that there will be another 30 years and another 30 years.
I can just wish that it goes 30 more and 100 more. I think it's very necessary, and it's great to have this family, because it really feels like a family.
Ah, vous voulez que je chante?
Daudz balto dieniņu laimīņa dodi, dižani ražani dzīvi.
Vojoti.
Schönen Geburtstag für dich.
Boldog szülinapot.
Alles Gute, Europa Cinemas.
Zum Geburtstag viel Glück.
Lang zal ze leven, lang zal ze leven, lang zal ze leven in de glorie.
Joyeux anniversaire.
Joyeux anniversaire, Europa Cinéma.
Joyeux anniversaire, Europa Cinéma.
Très bon anniversaire. Довгого літа Europa Cinemas. Europa Cinemas să trăiască, Europa Cinemas să trăiască la mulți ani.
Chez nous au Québec, il y a une chanson spéciale qui a été composée pour remplacer Happy Birthday qui est en anglais. Et ça se dit, mon cher Europa Cinéma, c'est à ton tour de te laisser parler d'amour.
Okay, thank you, Michael, for this wrap-up, for this nice summary of what has been said. Well, my conclusion right now would be, and one of the beautiful things that somebody told us yesterday evening, an exhibitor who said, so we came here very pessimistic and we're leaving as optimists. And I think that is the best conclusion of well, this session today. And well, the other one would be an European cinema galaxy quest. Never give up, never surrender. I think that is very important. We need to fight on, and we need to make sure that Europa Cinema and our fight, what we're fighting for, what we believe in, is going to go on for the next 20 years. But I think everything has been said, almost everything, so I would like to welcome also Harald and give him the mic. Hello, Mike. No, hello, Harald.
Yeah, I won't be able to compete with Michael, but I will link a little bit to what he was saying. He was actually talking about energy, love, and passion. He was talking about you. And he was talking about this event here, which is a cat, but it's also a dog. It's a cat, a dog, it's everything. It's Europa Cinema, it's a cat and dog and everything. And it's real. It resonated from the beginning. Some were wondering, are we really here? Yes, we were really here. And we had a real opportunity to learn and to exchange. For me, from the funding agency, from Creative Europe, it was an opportunity to see what otherwise is ticking boxes and filling in numbers to give electronic signatures, to see the real thing, to see what the European support allows to happen, and that it's meaningful. And for many of us, it was the first time after this big disruption to be again together in real, in presence, and to be again together in a big number. I mean, the big number meant that we here were representing basically the whole industry, from the producers to the viewers, to me, the whole value chain. And we had a lot of learnings. I mean, one of the learning is there are some are in this situation are in a more lucky spot than others. It's golden ages for the producers. It's a lot of choice for the viewers. The middle is squeezed. It's a very difficult situation for exhibitors, for theaters. But then again, we were talking about optimism. We were talking about how you are facing these challenges. And you are facing a number of challenges, multiple challenges. Michael summarized a number of the initiatives and the learnings, from better food to all kinds of new forms of outreach. But the most inspiring here for me is to see you and how you address these challenges. Your enthusiasm, your dedication, your professionalism, energy, love, and passion, as Michael was saying. So thank you for that. I already said it. It's good to see in real life that the network is highly relevant, is powerful, and it's vital. As Michael was saying, it's cats and dogs, it's conference and workshops, it's support and exchange, and it's great ideas. Let's think about Cineville as a European project. I mean, make it interactive all around Europe. Europa Cinema is the biggest project Creative Europe finances, and supports. It's a project that probably reaches out directly and indirectly to most Europeans. And it's strong and powerful because of you, its members. And it's also strong and powerful, and it was said already, because of the team that leads it and makes things like this conference happen. In the first row, and they're sitting here with me, Fatima, CLAUDE-ERIC, and NICO. So thanks to you, thank you to your team, thanks for making all this possible over 30 years, and happy birthday to Europa Cinemas, and at least another 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harald, for these nice words. And I think that also we have to thank the European Commission for real support over the last 30 years. Without the support, it would not have been possible. And I think the best here was, over those 30 years, there was a constant exchange between the European Commission and Europa Cinema, one always having demands to the other one. So we were really pushing each other higher and higher and higher. We didn't smoke, just pushing us higher. Okay, so okay, Michael did it. He thanks the Europa Cinema's team. Without them, it would not have been possible, and without Fatima, it would not have been coordinated. So thank you, Fatima. But before we hand the word to Fatima, I would like CLAUDE-ERIC, who is well, the founder of Europa Cinema 30 years ago. It was his idea, with a small team in France that was expanded rather quickly after that through Europe, and I was also one of the first members of the well, the official Europa Cinema Association, and well, that was 30 years ago. So we now need to make sure that there are next 30 years are also assured. CLAUDE-ERIC, take a mic, say hello to the mic.
Thank you, Nico. It's true, I was here from the very beginning, but I wasn't yet a member of the network per se, because my cinema is in Angers, and I wasn't in a city considered to be a key city, so I joined the network as an exhibitor 5 or 6 years later, and I've been a member since that time. So indeed, it's a long history. The starting point, I recall, when we launched Europa Cinema, well, the goals we had were networking and the circulation of films. Networking and circulation were the two watchwords. These were the objectives of the media program at the time, which was just being born, and it then turned into what it is, and then now we have Creative Europe. We had distributors, editors, there were a certain number of programs which had already been set up. And then we were perhaps the last to come on the scene because it was perhaps the most difficult project at the time. Discussions with media were rather complex because people said, well, how are you going to bring together a network with movie theaters throughout Europe? Thousands and thousands of movie theaters and exhibitors. That's utopian. It's not easy to do. You know the distributors, we know the producers, the exhibitors, so that's too many people. And so we had to formulate goals, and it's the two goals I mentioned: networking, create a network. And NICO, you were a member of the network from early on. And it's these 45 movie theaters which defended the project in Brussels, which then accepted the project, and every year the project grew bigger, and it's become what it is today. That is 1,250 movie theaters today in the network, and hence your presence here in the conference. So networking was really the goal. If we hadn't managed to create a network, Brussels wouldn't have helped us. The network really had to exist. So every year, that's what we did. We brought in new exhibitors, not just capital cities, but all cities, including small ones. We're present in 750 cities across Europe now. So that in terms of networking. Then we have the circulation of films. It's true that at the time, there were 12 countries within the European Union. The idea was to circulate films like other goods were able to circulate, overcoming borders, ensuring that films would be profitable and would be seen in all the other countries rather than only the country of production. So circulation was very important to set up with the distributors, of course, and for some years now with Europa International, and we work with the exporters. So this is something which was indeed our goal. We wanted to ensure that films circulated. I said right at the beginning that about 15 countries, 15 nationalities per movie theater per year. So we're really highly diversified. And then there's one last thing. As you've just said, Harold, we had a third goal. That's why we're here today. We have created a network, and we found and reached out to the public. We invented the public. We made things more dynamic. We accompanied the public. We did a lot of work to identify our audiences. And this is something that I think we've really been doing over the last 30 years. It was not defined, per se, as a goal, but directors, distributors have an audience because we enable them to get to know this audience. And I think that's absolutely essential. We've just emerged from a crisis, and you couldn't go out. And now it's tough getting people back into the cinemas. But as you said, people initially felt pessimistic, and bit by bit, this is turning into an optimism because the figures look better, and because, as you have seen in the past 3 days, it's absolutely wonderful what's being done. You've all traveled around the world in the last 3 days. We've seen the movie theaters of our colleagues. We've seen what our neighbors are doing, and that was absolutely fantastic because we realized that in each city, in each movie theater, exhibitors are being hyperactive. I'm thinking about you, Harold. Thank you. We're perhaps the biggest project, not financially speaking, but I think we rank quite high, even financially. And I think that when you and your team leave here and all the people from the media program, I think that you will have been convinced of the fact that the money you give really serves a purpose. And that is important. It wasn't obvious. We could have become and subsidized exhibitors. I know we don't like the word subsidized, but we're not subsidized people. We're people who are given means to really do things. And I think that during these 3 days, we have shown everything that we can achieve. As an exhibitor, I myself am really excited whenever I leave one of our conferences, because I think, well, what am I going to do in my movie theater? What more shall I do? We spent 3 years without seeing each other because of COVID. 3 years ago, we were in Lisbon, and we've missed each other over the last 3 years. But I think today we have shown that the network has resisted. It's held up. It's here. Its strength, its power is there. It's become much younger. I'm very pleased to see how young it has become. It's wonderful. I did a broadcast with Box Office. I'd like to thank Box Office, and you kept that as a title. You said the strength of Europa cinema is the fact that its exhibitors are younger and younger, over 30 years. Of course, we're still here, dear NICO, but lots of young people are here too, people who have opened up practices. I've learned an awful lot. We've learned a lot in our cinemas. We learn. We are people of the field. In other words, we don't indulge in theories. We're there in the field, and we exist thanks to admissions. We're not subsidized. We live off admissions. What I'm trying to say is that I think that the 3 days we've just spent together have been very fruitful. We've listened to so many dynamic people, and I think we can feel optimistic. As many have said, I was struck by that fact. In a few months, we'll be in Cannes. We'll be numerous to go to Cannes as well. And then we'll have figures for this year, which is drawing to a close. We've listened here to a lot of content, how to get audiences back in movie theaters, how to renew and how reinvent things. We've discussed all that here at the conference, and then in May we'll look at figures, because you'll be sending in your figures in the coming months. We'll collate all this, and we will make tables, and we'll be in a position to talk precisely about 2022. Was 2022 the year of renaissance? Have we lost all that much? Have we started to regain territory? And I'll refer to what Richard Patry was saying. Richard Patry, he's a very good singer. I heard him saying happy birthday. Richard said the other day that we're not going to wait for 2024 to reach the pre-COVID levels. He was very confident. He said this will happen in 2023. And I think that 2022 will prove to us, and we'll see this in the weeks to come, will prove to us that despite a difficult beginning of the year, because we were still wearing masks, and of course the movie theaters were opening again, I think now we can say that things are back to normal, and maybe this year will have been the first just about normal year. What Richard was saying was that 2023 will be a year when we reach the same levels as in 2019. This is our goal. It's my goal for my movie theater, and I'm sure it's yours too. So that basically is what I wanted to say about our 30th anniversary. We haven't talked much about our track record. There will be a book that will soon be published. We have Fatima, Jean-Philippe, and all the team will talk in this book about our beginnings and everything that has been done in Europa cinema over the last 30 years. Everything that has been invented, everything that's happened over these last 30 years. The role we have played, the money. Well, you give the money to us, we receive this money. It doesn't spend much time in our accounts. It's quickly passed on to you. We're a team, and this team works with you. I'll name them. You said you wanted to thank them. I'll name the boys and girls who are part of the team. Why? Because you'll recognize them. It's they who are in contact with you throughout the year. Hélène, Isa, Sonia, Juliette, Jean-Baptiste, Florian, Alexandre, Nicolas, Eduardo, Amel, Irène, Raphaël, Adrienne, Véronique, Nathalie, Mila, who's not here today. She's just delivered a child, Minem, and Mathilde, who's just joined us. So I think they deserve a round of applause. And obviously Fatima, who is not only the orchestra conductor for the whole team, but also the composer. She composed the conference with us all. She organized all this and enabled you to come up and give your presentations. She chose the speakers. She has an incredible memory, which is something I'm starting to lose. So perhaps one should hand over. We're beginning to do this. That's always useful. And thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank those who took the floor here to moderate the debates, Madeleine, Xavier, Franck, and of course, Michael Gubbins. Even if we did nothing in our movie theaters, Michael Gubbins would make us believe we're doing things. It's wonderful just to listen to him. Thank you, Michael. He sums things up, but also makes things dynamic. Debates with him are always dynamic, and I would like to thank him for, it's been about 20 years we've been working together, and for us, it's been really important. Fatima and I have spent a lot of time with Michael to prepare meetings like this one, because it's not easy to have a European viewpoint, and he really does, even if he's no longer really in Europe, because unfortunately he's British and Dutch, so nobody's perfect. Thank you, Michael, and thank you to all of you for having been present here. Now you're going to go back home. You'll be returning to your movie theaters. That is the place where you feel most comfortable, and you will ensure that everything we've said here can be put to the test, and you'll be screening films. And I'd just like to finish on that note. We're people who do a job, that's clear. It's a complex job. We have to manage a place, teams, welcoming the public, safety, energy. And that's quite complicated. So these are all things we know how to do. And then the audiences, we've just talked about that. We do this because we love films. We love the cinema. It's true that you have seen how before the conference we always present films. We presented 16 films to show that we're here also for films. Today we can say one thing as well. I believe that the entire profession, the whole industry, counts on movie theaters to reconnect with the audiences. And we exhibitors, you and I think that we count on the films in order to get the audiences back. That's my message. You can count on us for the audiences, and we count on you for the quality of the films which you'll be screening, because it's this osmosis, this pleasure, this culture, this strength that is essential, so that things happen still in our cities thanks to movie theaters, which welcome millions and millions of spectators who come to see films. So let's finish by talking about films. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Je vais laisser Fatima aussi nous dire quels sont...
I'll give the floor to Fatima. She'll talk about the next stages.
Thank you, everybody, for being so numerous with us. This is rewarding for the work that Harald, Nico, and Claude-ERIC were describing earlier. I just would like to give you the next deadlines, because after the conference is always something happening. So the next days, we have talked a lot about collaborate to innovate. You are going to get some preliminary information regarding the next call for 2023, and perhaps use what we have heard, here during the conference, the whole good projects, and take the chance to reflect on it and perhaps to replicate it. This is a very important part of Collaborate to Innovate. So in the next days, you will get all this information. There will 1.5 million euro available for all these projects, and do not hesitate to come back to us if you need any information on the guidelines and you don't understand anything in the application forms and so on. We have a whole team here dedicated to you. I think that is what we have showed you during this weekend, but it's very rewarding, as I said before, to really get your feedback and your positive feedback. The next deadline is the programming reports you will have to do and to send us by the end of January, so we get information on the member zone. You all know that, but for the ones who joined the network in 2022, this is a new procedure. So you will get this information very soon, I think in the middle of December. And another thing, yesterday during the workshop on sustainability and diversity, we introduced you the charters. One is, Michael was explaining earlier about sustainability in environment, and there is one on the other one on gender balance and inclusion. You will get the contract for 2023 with these two charters, and we will ask you to commit yourself to these two charters and countersign these two charters along with your agreement with us, And following the signature of this agreement, you will get, as last year, the advance payments. Sorry to give all these technical details, but this is very important for you and for us as well, to run Europa Cinema. The next deadlines as well, to perhaps find you again next year in face-to-face, will be the Sofia meetings and the Sofia Lab, which is going to take place from the 22nd to 26th of March. You will get an information as well. At the beginning, we will launch, let's say, the accreditation for the lab at the beginning of January. And then we will have as well the lab in end of June, beginning of July in Bologna, and we will have another one in Sevilla. I can't give you the dates right now, but it's middle of November approximately. And during the whole year, we will be available for you, and we will be there as well online. We will organize Zoom meetings. So please come back to us if you need anything from us, Thank you very much for being with us, and see you soon.
Je voulais remercier, effectivement,
I wanted to thank the European Commission, Creative Europe, Media, who are very important for us. 30 years with them, 30 years with the CNC as well, which is also important. They've stood by our side from the beginning. And the Institut Français, I'd also like to thank. They are a partner who has movie theaters around the world, and Eurimage too. We haven't talked much about Eurimage. Eurimage has been very present and a source of support. I'd like to thank them. They enable us to go beyond the European Union. And as we close, I'd like to say that it's thanks to Eurimage. We have an exhibitor here from Kyiv, from Ukraine, and I'd like to congratulate her. And it's thanks to Eurimage that she's here. Bon courage.
Okay, so thanks to everybody. I think there's nothing left. Many things have been said. Thanks again to everybody involved, to you, and see you in 2 years, hopefully, for the next conference and during the year in Cannes, and at the occasion of the different labs that Fatima is putting together for us, for you. As I said, the next 30 years, Europa Cinema, it's your Europa Cinema. Bye.
Un grand merci aux
And thank you very much to the interpreters, Yannick Gauthier, head of team, who has honored us with his support for about 25 years as well, and who enables us to understand each other, to understand the debates and the speakers.
Thank you.